Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond Recovery. My name is Matt, and I am joined by Kim Bellas, the founder of Sober is the New Cool, which, of course, is at soberisthenewcool.ca. Kim, how are you today?
I'm great, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. Yeah, very excited. Whereabouts are you in Canada?
I'm in Montreal.
Montreal. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so you're on the I'm up in Edmonton here, so on the other side of Canada from you. Music fade is not working for me. I'm just going to have to force quit it. Bear with me. But there's a few technical difficulties here. Okay, there we go. Usually I do a little fade there, but I just had to cut it off. So yeah, Montreal, Edmonton, this is cool. Really happy to have you on the show. Before we get into your personal story of sobriety and everything, I want to hear more about Sober is the New Cool. I was just browsing on your website there, which is mentioned as soberisthenewcool.ca. Tell me a little bit about it. What's the origin of the website, of the business, and what do you have going on?
So basically, Sober is the New Cool was created just for my son. It wasn't for anything other than for him to be able to navigate social situations. Because I was seeing that, it could be hard for him because he did spend graduate, food was not an option. So we had to find a way to help to new social, environment. And so I said one day, okay, Matthew, I'm going to do this with you. I'm just going to quit drinking for 3 months. And sure enough, 3 months has turned into 10 years. It'll be 10 years, January 12th, 2022, 23, I mean.
23.
So yeah, it was really just to help him because, life just turned upside down. He started having seizures from one day to the next. All sports were taken away. And so we came up with this Sober is the New Cool. My sister made the logo, and we just did it basically for him to be able to talk about not drinking with friends and going to the whole medical thing. And so when I first stopped drinking, it was really like a 3-month thing. And sure enough, he said to me after 3 months, see, now you could be like everybody else and have fun, fun. And so I kind of said, well, wait a second, Matt, I'll do another 3 months. After that, that's when I realized how drinking had affected my life. I was much happier. I exercised more. I was much more positive. I communicated a lot better than I thought I used to. So it just turned into a lifestyle. And quite honestly, I realized I was 51 at the time, and I realized that for me, being in social situations, people would say, oh, come here, come here, come here. It's not a big deal. You can have just one. And then I realized that's fair to me. Imagine a 14, 15-year-old kid that, is in social situations, weddings, parties, the boys in the park drinking beer, we've all been there kind of thing, right?
Of course.
So I just figured, somehow he used me as, an excuse with many of his friends when they would come over with the beer or the booze in the backpack and say, my mom quit drinking for me, so you can't drink here. And I kind of used him, I guess, as an excuse that, I stopped drinking for my son. And little did I know, he gave me back my life. So Sober is the New Cool was started, and people just came from everywhere. I don't know. Some were from Facebook, some were from, Instagram. I mean, I knew nothing about those platforms when before it was a learning curve. And here we are 10 years later, helping people all over the world.
Wow. Incredible story. I love how so unassuming it started. It was just a thing for you, like a relationship with and support of your son. Great name, by the way. As you said, his name's Matt.
Yes.
Oh, I like him already. I like him already. So that's cool. How old is your son now then? How old is he?
Yeah, he just turned 25.
Okay, so that's what you said, around 15 years old, which is a
Yeah.
very influential age for, peer pressure. Like you say, meeting in the park, hey, you want to try one of these? You know what I mean? That was yeah, I think that's exactly when I first started dabbling in that sort of thing. So to have that, kind of support and everything's very unique and very cool of you to have done. And I love the story. Like you said, basically it gave you you did it as support of your son, and as it turns out, it gave you your life back in a lot of ways, which is, yeah, really cool story.
Abs- ab- Absolutely. And, it's become my passion, helping others. And, there's so many people, and I'm so grateful that they choose to share their stories with me, or they trust me enough to, ask for help. And then I find them help throughout the resources I have. I don't pretend to be a doctor. I don't pretend to be anything like that. I just help them get, what they're looking for, basically.
For sure, for sure. So what is Sober the New Cool? It started like you'd mentioned, like you and your son, and then you had somebody get, was it your sister you said came up with the
Yeah.
logo? So that
Well,
very, yeah, very grassroots starting point. What was it like in that first year even? Like you mentioned, okay, you have it on Facebook and that sort of thing. What were you initially, as soon as you noticed that other people were like, yeah, let's like I'm totally on board with this. When did you start realizing, okay, no, I can actually use this as like a business or a chance to help other people and that sort of thing?
Well, to be honest with you, Matt, the first year, a lot of people told me saying sober and cool in the same sentence was never going to work. So
Okay.
I said, right. And I
Yeah.
said, no, so sober is the new cool. Like, I mean, it's kind of like drinking and driving is not cool, right? So sober is the new cool. And, when it first started, like, it was just kind of like cool teacher, girl, grade 5 school, kids. And I started this I am exercise with her. She said, I have no qualities. I said, oh, yes, you do. So every morning and every night I'd send her I am with one positive word. And then she wrote 6 months later on Instagram or Facebook, I can't remember which one, saying, I met this girl, Kim, from Sober is the New Cool. I couldn't say one good thing about myself. And now it's 6 months later and I can say 50. And every day when my school kids come in, I am on the blackboard, and then I go around the room telling everybody that they have to say one good thing about themselves. And
Mm,
I think it was at that moment that I realized, wow, we can make an impact, and we can make being sober. First of all, nobody should have to explain why they're sober or why they choose not to drink, right? I mean,
right.
it's
Right.
start with that. And if you do choose to share it, people should be open to it. And it's like if you have an allergy to some sort of food, a peanut allergy, or you're gluten intolerant, nobody's going to ask you why, or not help you come to their house and have special things for you. So it should be the same thing. And I guess the more it went on and the more young people, at the beginning it was quite young, like I would say like from early 20s to 45. And now, I mean, I even have a grandmother last Christmas that her grandchildren made her wear Sober is the New Cool t-shirt for Christmas Eve because they were so proud that she was 2 years sober at 82 years old.
82. Wow. So cool. So cool.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like, yeah, a decade in, the reach that you've had with this brand and all that. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like how far, yeah, and even like what brings this up is you're talking about an 82-year-old that's wearing it. Like, what are some of the more surprising, spots that you've ended up in the world where you're like, is there somebody from, across like in Australia or something? Like, tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about like, yeah, how far your reach is at this point.
So at one point, actually, about 2 years ago, I had a woman from South Africa. And she said, I just read your story about your son. She said, my son is a meth addict. I don't know what to do. I'm lost. I don't have like a lot of money to send him to private rehab. She was kind of telling stories. Wait a second, I have my phone because I was on my iPad. I said, I know somebody in South Africa. So Chris now is a podcaster like you. And I sent him a message. He's 27, or he was 27 at the time. And I said, hey, Chris, I said, listen, I have this woman, is there a way that you could help her? Or are there any like resources that you know of that are free or not too expensive to help her son? So I gave them each other their contacts. Had and 3 times. And now I must say he is sober for about 6 or 8 months now. I think he's at 8 months now. So, but they've made a huge connection. I have people in Australia. I have people all over France. I have people all in the UK. I've got people in New Zealand. I've got people everywhere. And, to be honest with you, I think I would say I have the least amount in Canada, believe it or not.
Wow. Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting how that happens? I always liken it to, bands became big. Like, it seemed like the Beatles became big in the States and then all of a sudden they're hometown heroes. Or like Jimi Hendrix had to go to Europe to become big before he came back home. It's sort of funny that sometimes that can be the case where it's just like you get accepted outside of your home territory before it really picks up for you in your homeland. So that's interesting though. I would have thought that you would have this like grassroots movement in Canada and then expanded. So it's curious that it kind of went the other way, but also speaks to the time that we live in, right? Even like the last
Yeah.
10 years and the global community as it's known, right? Anybody can see anything as long as you're on Facebook, Instagram, that type of thing. So really cool, really cool. I'm curious about your own relationship, a little bit more about your story. Obviously, we know the origin story and how, it's affected you and you're going on, your congratulations on your 10 years, your decade of sobriety. It's amazing. What was life like before that, though? What was your life? When were you introduced to, alcohol? Was it growing up? A little bit about your backstory there, please.
Well, so basically, I was, the regular party girl, I mean, I drank normally like 16, 17, like the regular, everybody's kind of story. But I have to say, I never really felt like I was enough. So it was like liquid courage. I would be able to say things, I could dance a little bit more throughout my whole life. Right. And then I had kids. And, to be honest with you, I mean, I did all the, right stuff. Like did, fundraisers for cancer events and I did all kinds of went to school, the school class mom, everything. But I realized that once I did give the alcohol for Matthew, that I was drinking a bottle of wine at least a night,
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10. And that isn't normal. And, I was more tired and I guess, it just got into, it was like a habit kind of thing where, you'd finish homework at 4 o'clock, 4:30, or you'd have lunch with ladies, you know, the lady lunch kind of thing, mom lunch,
Yep.
and you'd have some wine then you'd pick up the kids at school, which is, not so great. And then, then you'd come home, you'd do homework, then supper would start, you'd open a bottle of wine, and then before you know it, a bottle was gone. And so I guess I was never out of control. I don't like having those kind of labels on anyone, but I know I'll never drink today, tomorrow, or again because I don't want to lose what I have. I think I've
Mm,
lost too many memories, and you
mm,
go to a wedding, you have all this fun and everything else, and then you realize there's like all these like little moments that are missing, right?
yeah.
And that's just not and I guess what, when you're around people that drink, you don't really realize how much you're drinking, right? Because
Yep.
your circle is kind of like that. It's until you stop drinking. And the first year, I have to tell you, Matt, restaurants and parties and all that kind of jazz was really not for me. And if I had to go somewhere, I was the first one to leave. And
Mm.
I did go and I got hypnotized to help me with quitting smoking years before. So
Oh.
I figured when I did the booze thing, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do this and see if it just takes the edge off. And I think it did. I mean, to this day, there are still moments. This summer I was at someone's house and um, I'm very open now about, how I deal with alcohol. If somebody says, would you like a drink? Before I'd say, oh, no, thank you, just water or Perrier. Now I'll just say, no, I don't drink. So we don't go through that dance. Do you want red wine, white martini, gin? Like the list goes on and on. So this summer I saw like a bottle of pink champagne that I hadn't seen in God knows how long. And that was one of my favorites. And I have to tell you, my eyes were like saucers, and I had to turn around and go, whoops, okay, reset, because the triggers still are there. And I guess it is, they always will be. So I guess deep down inside them, alcohol was an issue with some of my family members. So it's not I know what alcohol can do. And, it goes down in generations. It passes down, right? So for me, it's just not an option anymore.
Yeah, there's like a couple things that you mentioned that very, very similar to my story, and I imagine are very similar to a lot of people's stories. Using it as liquid courage, a way to. And you mentioned it at the very beginning of the interview. You said it's like I thought my way of communicating was more effective, and then of course you can look
Yeah.
back on it and go, well, maybe not so much. Let's
Mm,
let's talk a little
mm.
bit about that though, like the whole liquid courage thing, because that was a big part of my story as well, and my feeling that I was able to open up and express myself in a what I thought at that time was an authentic way. I was finally tapping into my true self, and that was my, you know, erroneous way of thinking at the time. But yeah, I'm curious to see, like, as you had mentioned it when we were first starting up, like, what was the difference between like your communication then and then how your communication is developed and the way that you're communicating and presenting yourself now?
Well, I think quite honestly, before, I was either like, oh, super, super fun, or all of a sudden something had happened and upset me like weeks prior. And out of the blue, I would like blurt something out. Like people didn't even know where the
Mm.
hell I was coming from. And I realize now that I don't regret anything really that I've ever said. I regret how I said it. So I think
Mm.
now no one can say, oh, you've had 2 glasses of wine or 3 glasses of wine, or you're emotional, or, I would cry easier. I was very sensitive.
Mm.
And now it has nothing to do with booze. This is how I feel. And whether you like it or not, I'm entitled to my feelings. And I feel that now when I have to say something, I think I choose my words a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well put. I
Not
know.
always,
Not all,
not
yes.
always,
Hey, you're
but
only human, right?
not
Like you say, those emotions
exactly.
they come up one way or the other. Sometimes when you're not expecting, and then yeah, and then those types of things happen. So, I want to get into a little bit more about you. You're kind of suggesting, the different things that you've developed over this, the 10 years of sobriety and such. Did you have any? I'm curious. Did you have any relapses? You'd mentioned that like your eyes became saucers when you saw this particular. But you're acknowledging, and this is a great, valuable piece of information for somebody that is at the beginning of their sobriety journey that's listening to this, knowing that you're 10 years in and you still have these, every now and then, like you say, you got to turn around, reset. So I'm curious, did you have any relapses or like really close calls in that 10 years? And if so, how did you manage that, both, mentally, like energetically?
Well, basically, the only time I really, really I struggled with it was in year 6, because it was the summer of year 7, going into year 7, because we decided we didn't go on holidays anymore. My husband and I would go separately with my mother or my sister, and my husband would go to a golf tournament or whatever, because my son was sick. So
Mm.
year 6 or 7, I can't remember the summer, we decided we were going to rent a cottage again, just an hour and a half away from where we live. But Matthew was going to be home, and not having that constant control or helicopter mom at any minute, and checking in was probably every time I saw someone with a glass of rosé or it was really difficult. And I guess it came down to being, a bit of a control freak, and
Mm.
being maybe a bit egotistical that the world couldn't survive without me managing it. So that was my summer and I think that's where for me running and loud music, and that's huge. I don't run fast, I jog, but I go, and I think when I don't do that, there's a huge disconnect for me, for anxiety and whatever. That seems to be, and one of these psychiatrists we had seen at the neurologist, she was a neuropsychiatrist, had told me plain blank into my, had said, you have to take care of you. You have to do something, because if not, I'm going to have to send you to an anxiety clinic, because you're so over the top watching Matthew's every move. You're not breathing. And that's when, you know, the jogging and the exercise came in. And in the last few years, I've started meditating, which at first I didn't like at all. I have to tell you, I mean, you know, it was really hard for me to quiet my mind and sit quietly. And now I'm pretty good at it. I mean, I don't like things that are quite long. I like to do like 5, 10, 15 minutes kind of thing. And at night time a little bit. But I find that's huge also, you know, and quite honestly, surrounding myself with people like my really, really good friends and people that I can trust and say, you know what, I'm just, you know, I'm not really feeling it or whatever before. Now I find it's quite easy because all this sober is the new cool is out there. And whenever I am somewhere, 9 times out of 10, somebody comes to sit beside me and says, you know, I'm newly sober, I'm just sober a year or two. How do you do this? How do you do that? And I guess I talk about it like I talk about the sunshine. So I make it very easy. And I think everybody should talk about mental health and addiction because there should be no shame. We've got to get rid of that shame. And if you do relapse, I don't want that. Oh my God, day one. Yeah, okay, day one, good, you're back. Who cares?
Yes.
Just keep going, you know, because failure is when you don't try, right? That's what it comes down to.
That's the only true failures if you continue to, reserve yourself the fact that you're hopeless or that you can't come back from something. Absolutely, I agree with you. You know, I had a gentleman on my podcast, I think last week, and we kind of did an analogy, like a sports team analogy, like if as far as like, you know, sober days and then if you have a relapse. Like if, say, for example, if a sports team wins 30 games in a row and then they have 1 loss, you're not going to, you know, of course there's going to be, oh, well, too bad, like the streak is over, but they're not going to focus on and then be like, oh, they're never going to win again. And you know what I mean? It's just, it's kind of nonsensical that it's just, you know, that it's, you know, you steer, like for me, when I had that, I would steer it and I would get so on top of myself and be like, oh, I'm such a, you know, it was, you know, the second arrow, right? It's like you get in a car accident and you get angry at yourself for getting in the car accident. You've already done the damage. There's no need to pile on yourself and be, oh, I'm such an idiot for doing that. It's just like, okay, what can I do to get back on the road, right? So, you know, it's definitely, really, really worthwhile that you said that. I like it when you touched. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And Matt, would you say that, what would you say to me? Like, you know, everybody gets mad at themselves, but you would never get mad at me if I had a relapse or anybody else.
No,
right?
I'd be the opposite. I'd be support and be like empathetic, be like, hey, listen, how can we get you, you know, let's focus on the solution versus dwelling on the problem, right? Is it a problem? It's part of learning, right? Problems, again, same thing as failure, right? It's only a problem if you allow it to, you know, become bigger than it is. So, yeah. Really cool. Really cool. I like you. So you mentioned, I was going to ask you, because you'd mentioned the physicality, the aspect of running. And because I always like to ask people, you know, what keeps you on this, you know, this sobriety. So you've mentioned jogging, you mentioned, you know, you got into meditation. It took a little while, acquired taste, so to speak. Anything else? What other things do you have in your life that is keeping that balance, that equanimity in your sobriety?
Well, you know, I got to tell you, I think the fact that the sober community, everyone who I've met, are so extraordinary. Like, honestly, I find that it's like a huge gift in my life. These people I've met from all over the world, they're authentic, they're helpful, they're there if you need them for no matter what, or to help somebody else. And I think that this becoming my passion and helping others is what keeps me going. And, you know, some days I wake up and I think, oh God, you know, I haven't helped enough people this week, or I haven't done this. I start to get down on myself. And then all of a sudden I get this little note, oh my God, I want to stop drinking. Can you help me? I live here. Can you, or someone like at one point, you must know about Sober Dave in the UK. He does a lot of, and one going to the first event few months ago, and she wrote to me and say, you know, I'm going and now I'm wondering if I should go. I don't know anybody. And I went, wait. I know a lot of young women in the UK. So I just went like and I put all their names down. and one lived like one train stop away from her. So they took the train together to Sober Dave's event. So
No
it
way.
took somebody in Montreal to get two people that were 10 minutes apart or 15 minutes apart. And they had a fabulous time. That's what I love the most. I like now I'm going to go to New York City for a meet and greet. I'm going to go to London because I have my sweet Natty that's AKA Sober Badger who asked me to do a tattoo. And I wasn't a tattoo kind of girl, but I said if that was my son asking somebody, and if it made her feel that she was worthy, I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And so we're like thick as thieves. I was in Montreal, she was in London, and we did it by WhatsApp together by
Yeah.
phone.
Cool.
And we have matching tattoos. And I have,
Yes.
women all over the world. And I feel like they've become my daughters. And I
That's so
love it.
so cool. I love when you've mentioned a few times. I get the impression that it's a big thing for you to be like a resource for people, and it's not an ego-based resource as fact that you have to be the one that, you have contacts, other people. Like, I may not know the answer, but I know somebody that will have the answer. I may not have that resource, but I know somebody that will be able to get you in contact with that resource, right? So I think I get the impression that's a big part of the way that your tentacles around the world, so to speak, right? You have all these connections, and it isn't about an ego based, like, I want to be able to say that I did it. In fact, it's the opposite. If you can introduce somebody to somebody else and then they go on and, do their own thing, and just know that you had a, small part in it, or not even small is not the right word, but a part in it as far as the introduction, that's great with you. So that's super cool. Like you talked about ego earlier. To me, I'm not hearing anything about ego. It's very much service, and that's really cool of you.
And the other thing I think it all stems from the fact that, since I was young, I never felt I was enough. I never thought I was smart enough. I never thought, I thought I should have been a doctor or a lawyer or, I don't know, something, right? Other than who I am. And I honestly, it took me till I'm 60 years old to say I'm enough and feel like I'm okay. I'm not perfect by any means, but I'm okay with who I am. And I don't want anybody else to have to wait till they're 60 to get to that point.
Wow. So that's the why right there. Yeah. Really cool. I love it. I love it. Well, let's get into a little bit of the, like, I'm always fascinated with the relationship, like with my own personal ego. My ego definitely was came into a factor. Like, I'd been sober for about 3 years, and then it was my ego that very much decided that wanted to jump in the driver's seat again, and then and say that, oh, I was cured and I can try moderation drinking and so forth. So my ego, when it overtakes, when my relationship with my ego, yeah, shifts and it gets in the driver's seat as opposed to in the, being the backseat driver that it otherwise is, that's when I have issues in my life. So you had mentioned it before. I get the impression at certain times in your life, your relationship with your ego is different than it is today. So what can you say about that, as far as, what your relationship with your ego was before, and how you were able to relieve that, and, still have a working relationship with it today?
Well, I guess the one thing I could say about all that is I always had my son, and the first few years were really hard, with the seizures on and off. So there wasn't really too much room for anything else than really looking after
Mm.
him and worrying about him, which probably was a huge factor in not drinking, because if somebody's sick and you have to go to the hospital in the middle of the night or whatever, there's no choice there. There was no choice, and like I say, I do think I used him as, did I ever do that to him? When I know as a mother, like I would love to fix it all, like just, sugarcoat everything and make everything a nice little box for him. I can't make him better, but this I can do. And it was really the only thing I could do, because
Mm.
I knew how hard life was for him. And for him to go, and even to this day, I got to tell you, Matt, it's not easy for him. Like, he doesn't drink at all because he knows and he did a few times drink with his medicine, and off we went back to the hospital, right?
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
it really wasn't. And they used to say at the hospital, oh yeah, you can have 1 or 2 drinks. Well, what teenager do you know that's going to have 1 or 2 drinks? I don't know
Yeah,
too many.
that's true. Very true. Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's oh,
that's okay.
yeah, sorry, it was just the last part of your whatever what you were saying was like, yeah, I apologize. I think I stepped on what you were saying, but it was on my end it glitched out a little bit. Um yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Uh, yeah, where I was gonna go, that kind of threw me off a bit. My apologies. Yeah, I do want to talk a bit more about Matthew, right? And just how is
Yeah.
what is his reaction to this whole legacy that, or this whole like name that is like sober's the new cool. It's got to be quite fascinating to him. He's more or less grown up with this brand that was initially sort of a bridge between yours and his relationship. And like, what is he is to me, if I'm putting myself in a 16-year-old's mindset, my 16-year-old mindset, to have seen that happen, if I had that with my mom, I would have been like, holy crap, like this is pretty special and pretty crazy. What are his thoughts on sober is the new cool and what it's become?
Well, he's here. I'm going to see if he can come up right now and
Yes.
talk to you,
Yeah, that'd be
because I
wonderful.
don't like putting words in his mouth.
Okay.
But he's, here, just give me half a sec, okay?
Yeah,
Just give me half a sec.
of course. Yeah.
Matthew, can you can you come up here for a second? Hold on. I think he's gonna come up and he can
Oh,
talk to you for a sec.
yeah. Excellent.
Um, I think he's proud, obviously. He's probably, obviously proud of, the fact that I stopped drinking for him. That
Sure.
was
Yeah.
huge. And, I think our sorry,
There
there
we
we
go.
go.
Yeah, it dropped out again there, but
Yeah.
I still recording. So, Matthew,
Hi.
how are you? How's it going? My name is also
Okay,
Matt.
wait.
So, are you guys okay on your end there?
Hello?
Matthew, how are you? My
Yeah,
name's
I can
Matt
hear.
as well.
Hi, how are you?
Very good.
Hello?
Yourself? Hello. Can you hear me?
Uh,
Not very
not
well.
too. Yes, perfect. I hear you perfectly.
Awesome, buddy. And nice to meet you.
No, perfect, perfect, perfect.
Right
Nice to
on.
meet you as well.
Yeah, I was just talking with your mom just about the whole, sober is the new cool and just the relationship that you have with her. And I asked her a question, what you thought of, everything that's going on just the last 10 years with sober is the new cool. And she said she didn't want to put words in your mouth, so she went and grabbed you. So what has it been like for you, being like 16-year-old and now, you're 26, 27
Yeah.
and just seeing this brand become what it is today. What has it been like for you?
It's been great. My mom's been a role model for, well, since I was a kid, of course. But what she's done has been phenomenal, especially for everything, especially for me as a kid. Life was hard growing up, of course. Going out to parties, seeing everybody drinking and whatnot. I was unable to do so due to my epilepsy and whatnot. So, that was also quite hard to deal with. So my mom one day she was gonna bring me to a party, and I told her, you know what, I didn't feel like going. And then she asked me why. So I told her, all the kids, I know it's bad because it's at a younger age, and here in Quebec it's only 18 to drink. So yes, when you're young you drink and whatnot. So parties wasn't really my cup of tea because everybody would just drink and drink and drink, and I would just sit there. So one night I just told her, you know what, I'll just rather stay home. And she goes, well, you don't need to drink. And at the time, this was a really long time ago, but still, she had a drink in her hand, and I think she thought ever since then she was. She goes, well, like I'm kind of hypocritical to tell my son, you can't have a good time if you don't drink. So I think she saw that very differently ever since. And she's been, well, like I said, she's my mother. She's been there through everything with me. And I haven't had any seizures. Well, I don't drink. Yeah, she's been doing a phenomenal job. It's coming up on 9 years. 10 years, sorry. So yeah, I lose track of time. It's been so long. Yeah. But yeah, my mom is, it's unbelievable the path she's taken, and especially to grow this brand. It was really inspiring, growing up as a kid at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, even to this date. It's inspiring every day. She tells me and she shows me posts. I try to do what I can for the brand as well. I'm very busy at work, but there's always, I always tell the younger audience, because it's harder to reach out for help. It You can relate to somebody on your own age. It's easier to say, okay, instead of, I love my mom. She's 60 years old, but younger kids around my age, like the 25 to 30 mark, I don't know if they feel as comfortable to speak to like an older lady than they would to be around my age. Like how did you deal with it as young women and young men? And I try to break it down for them. Like, of course, my story isn't like everybody else's, right? So some people have had it very hard in life. Some people have had it, and they do it as a thing, right? And it's hard to deviate. It's very easy to deviate from a sober life to a toxic environment based on the people you're with. Things happen. It's something you really got to look out for. And if I can help at least one individual every day, it definitely puts a smile on my face. And it is quite a journey to become sober. And I congratulate everybody out there that's trying to do that for themselves.
Awesome, man. Great answer. Yeah, very well spoken. I love to hear
Yeah,
from. That was really cool that you were able to come in, and I'm happy you were home while we're doing this
of
interview.
course,
Pleasure meeting you. Great first name, of course, as well. My name is Matt,
of
as I mentioned.
course.
So yeah, it's really cool. We're part of the team Matt. So, dude, keep it
Yeah,
up. Yeah, what a
thanks.
wonderful story, and I'm glad that you're wearing the hoodie there too. You guys are all swagged up here today, so that's fantastic. Representing the
Yeah,
brand.
of course, of
Yeah,
course.
awesome, buddy.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
I'll
awesome,
pass you
man.
back to my mother.
Yeah, sounds great.
It was
Pleasure
a
meeting you.
pleasure.
Yeah, take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Oh, that was really cool. Thanks for grabbing him. Yeah. Great
Yeah,
kid.
yeah,
Great
yeah.
guy. Great guy.
Really good. And he has helped a bunch of kids his own age, so which is helpful. And
Yeah.
kids with epilepsy actually have reached out to him because it's
So
hard for
cool.
them not to drink, right?
Yeah, right. Wow. So cool. So cool. I love this story. I love how you're able to come on today and share this. And I'm just like, it's one of these things I can just see the intention and everything that you had behind this brand. It's one of those like success stories where it was just like, you know, the heart's in the right spot, your heart was in the right spot, and it just took off for all the right reasons. And that's really cool, because there's there in a when I think when I'm on YouTube, how many uh, almost sort of manipulative sales techniques and things that are occurring, and everybody's trying to make a quick buck, and you are just doing it straight from the heart and seeing that it's successful is proof to me, and I'm sure to other people, that if you are aligned with from your heart and your intentions are good to help other people, good things will return to you. So, it's the universe, what you get, when you put out, you get back. So it's just a fantastic story all around.
And there's just one thing I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
The proceeds from the hoodies and the t-shirts, I give away more. This is not a money-making thing at all.
Mm.
We give back to the Douglas Foundation and other mental health and addiction places. So the proceeds, once the t-shirts paid for and the shipping, the proceeds is given back to our community, and it's
Wow.
going to remain like that. Yeah.
So it's like
So
truly a non-profit. It's just
oh no, and
yeah,
we're trying actually to get nonprofit status in Canada, but
very cool.
it's very hard.
I've heard this before, which seems it's kind of somewhat confusing to me, but I've never tried to do it. So I best of luck with that. Kim, anything else you want to finish off with? Any advice if there are some people that are listening to this? First off, it's like, what's the best way to get a hold of you? And then secondly, yeah, what is like your, resounding advice, or like the one piece of advice that you seem to give the most commonly when people are coming up to you going, "Hey, what about this? What about that?"
Well, the one thing I want to say is you are never, ever alone. There's sober angels everywhere here to help and not judge, zero judgment.
Mm.
And you are in this world for a reason, and the world needs you because there is only one of you. And we are here and we will help you, and we will guide you. We don't care. It's not a one size fits all kind of, if it's meditation you need, if you want to do AA, if you want to do Zoom meeting, whatever, we need to help you. I promise to ask. And if it's your day one, again, like I said, do not be shy. Be glad that you've owned it and you're ready to. You don't have to tell anybody. You could tell me. You don't have to. Just come back, and you know what? Start over. And you know what?
Mm.
Be as nice to yourself as you would be to me or to you, Matt.
Mm. Love it. So good. Such great advice. Actually, one thing that I always like to finish off the show with, and I will give you your chance to say, what best way to find you. I've been toying around with this question a lot recently, so I'm wondering what you think of it. What is being authentic, or what does authenticity mean to you?
Well, I think really trying to. I read something the other day, and it said, "Love the worst part of yourself."
Ooh.
And then you really are going to heal, because you know what, we can all say, okay, well, we're tall, or we're smart, or we're this, or we're that, but you know what, wherever you've made your mistake, learn to just accept it, move on, and be gentle with yourself, honestly.
Mm.
And I think that's the best, loving the worst part of yourself.
Yeah, that's
You're
great.
halfway there. You're on your way. You're
Yeah,
really on your way if you can
yeah.
kind of go, okay, not so good, but I'm going to do
But
better.
yes, I love that. I love that. What is the easiest way to get a hold of you? We'll have this in the show notes. You gave me all your, places that you are online. But if somebody were to want to reach out to you, what's the easiest way to get a hold of you online, Kim?
Well, I think that we have a website, soberisthenewcool.ca. Instagram, you can DM our account anytime. It's sober, period, is, period, the, period, new, period, cool. And you know what? I'm constantly on my phone. I will answer you, I promise. And you're gonna find exactly what you're looking for, and you're gonna have a good life because you deserve it.
Brilliant. I love it. Thank you so much, Kim. We'll definitely keep in touch. I absolutely love and admire what you're doing. What a wonderful story. And thank you so much for coming on my show today to share your story, and all the best to yourself and your wonderful son, Matt.
Thank you. And if I
Mwah.
can ever help you, let me know.
Will do. Thank you so much.